All right. I can get behind a little Eclipse action.
I'm with it. I like the Eclipse. We're gonna smooth things out a little bit here on the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the kind. I like that intro. That's
Yeah,
the best one so far.
that was good because it gave me something to like kind of follow along. For anybody that's listening to the podcast, we do a video version, and the way that we do it, it takes a second for the video to start actually recording everything. So we had to create like this intro countdown thing, and the website we use has a bunch of random countdowns. So we just pick a new one each week, and every time it throws us off or either gets us ready and hyped to go. So I felt like that was a good one. We do want to get into some NBA stuff. Obviously, the finals are over. We are on to the draft because the NBA does not sleep. And so we're going to talk about the NBA draft, give some winners and losers, give some just overall thoughts about it. And then we'll hit ballin' and fallin', and then we want to get into the bigger news, in my opinion, which is trades and specifically with the Lakers. And so we will get into that later on in the show. So hang on for that. The first thing I did want to bring up, though, in the warm-up jumper is like all the, just been drafted interviews have been going around. And one of the ones that kind of stuck out to people is Scotty Barnes. They kind of asked him, they're like, oh, what do you like to do? Tell us a little bit about yourself. And his response was, I'm a pretty boring person. I play video games and chill. That's really it. Sometimes I play mini golf.
I mean, listen, number one, I love mini golf, so there's nothing wrong with that. Listen, hey, not everybody needs to live an exciting life. If the kid just likes to play basketball and play some video games and chill out, like I'd rather have him on that end of the boring life than on the other side,
I agree with that, but you got to get the context of what just happened. You're the new player. You got to give the team and the fans something to hold on to get excited for. Like, give them anything. Like the fact, and mini golf is probably going to be what they hold on to now, is like he's going to have a mini golf endorsement in like 2 weeks, like it's what's going to end up happening.
I mean, that would be great. I mean, I hope he does get a mini golf endorsement. That'd be an incredible one. The fans will be fine. If the kid is good, they're not going to care about what he does off the court as long as he's fine. Like, look at Tim Duncan. Nobody knew what Tim Duncan was up to, it felt like. He was notorious for that. Nobody cared because he was awesome.
Yeah, but I don't know. With the day and age of social media, like you could have a whole theme around whatever you say in that very first press conference. So I felt like you got to give him more than sometimes I play mini golf. It's like,
what do you want him to lie? You want to make something up?
I don't know. I mean, elaborate on the video games or something. It's no hate on mini golf. It just was like the most plain, boring, vanilla answer you could give in an interview where you're just got drafted. The team's supposed to be excited for you.
I mean, I'm sure he's excited. He said he's excited to meet new people. That later in the quote, he's like, I like to conversate with people. So I don't think he's some like awkward stiff who doesn't do anything either. Like, he's going to be fine. Who cares?
I guess it's just really weird situation. And obviously we'll get into him getting drafted because that was where he went was a little bit of a surprise, I think, at least from the reaction that I saw during the draft while I was watching it. As of recording this, draft being a few days ago. So as you're listening to this or watching this, potentially a few days ago as well, I would like to say for our warm-up jumper number 2, the 21-22 Rookie of the Year odds have come out. Cade Cunningham, obviously, number 1. I don't think anybody's surprised at that. At 5-2 odds. Jalen Green, number 2. Suggs is number 4. And Barnes, who we were just talking about, is number 5.
Who's 3? Forgive me?
Evan Mobley.
Oh, so they just basically went in order, more or less.
Pretty well. Suggs and Barnes.
Suggs and Barnes.
Yeah.
I think Suggs might be a little higher, or I think she maybe should be a little higher. I don't know if he should be ahead of Jalen Green, but I think Suggs is going to get thrown right into the Orlando starting lineup, and that's something we'll get into here in a little bit. But so obviously a lot of Rookie of the Year too depends on workload as well. So I think guys who are given an opportunity to get playing time from day one. Now, granted, I think Jalen Green is going to get the same thing in Houston. Obviously, I think Cade is going to get it as well in Detroit. So, I mean, yes, I've been saying that Cade Cunningham is the best prospect in this draft. So, to that token, I would agree that he should be the guy. He's going to get thrown into a large role in Detroit right away. But that's probably the only thing I'd change about it. I would move Suggs up a little bit more. Like with Scotty Barnes, I think he's a little more developmental anyway. And just with Toronto, I don't think he'll be asked to do as much. Like, Toronto's already a decent team. They just had a bad year, but they're good players there. Like, there are plenty of reasons to think that they should bounce back this year. Where, with Orlando, with Detroit, with Houston, with, a lot of these other lottery teams that guys went to, there are obviously lesser expectations for them.
And I would say with Scotty, it could also depend on what happens going forward with the Raptors. There's potential trades and rumors out there, and even him getting picked, there raised some questions with Pascal Siakam as well. I saw that going on. So, like, there will be potential for his workload to be a little bit higher depending on what happens before the season starts, or maybe even before the trade deadline,
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of depends on where it goes, but that's why, you get in on the Rookie of the Year odds early.
Yeah, and there were a lot of people who, or you almost get in on the Hawks odds and mess around and win the title. Do you remember that? Do you happen to remember that by off chance in, like, way back? We recorded an episode, and I don't think I talked about this on the podcast, but we recorded an episode. I'm talking back in, like, September. It was right before the season started, and we had talked about how the Hawks spent all that money in the offseason. But we were looking at the Vegas odds for teams to win the title before the season started. And I said on this podcast, which I guess is karma too, looking at it now from that Sixers series, but I said, if you're betting on some of these teams, I get the odds upside, but I just don't understand it. And I said, if you're giving money away, my Venmo is open. And so listener Venmo me $10. Shout out to Al. And I was so flattered that I took that money and I put $10 of my own on the Hawks to win the title. And so I never talked about it because I didn't really think it was going to be a thing. And then when Giannis's knee went down, I was like, oh my God, this might actually, like, they might be in the finals sooner than later.
Payout would have been like,
oh, it would have been crazy. It would have been, I think we would have, it was plus 10,000. I think we would have won, like, well, it would have been too crazy, but, like, I think we would have won $1,000 each. It would have been like $10 into $1,000 each. So
and to that, you just made me think of this. For my, I guess, our second wedding, we are, for my groomsmen, what I'm planning to do is my other buddy is going to Vegas the week before the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna send him out there with I have six groomsmen. So I'm going to send them out there with 6 20s, and I'm going to have them put $20 on each of their favorite teams to win the Super Bowl, or depending on some of them, like, whatever their favorite team is, that, championship in some way. So I think that's kind of a cool little thing where it's like, because, like, one's a Giants fan, so those odds will be pretty good. We'll put some on the Eagles because I got a bunch of Eagles fans.
To win the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, dude.
The odds will be good, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen.
No, but that's fine. That's the wedding gift. It's like, look, I'm giving you this potential to win a ton of money.
You should put it on roulette, low key. After what you did last time in Vegas on roulette, that was different. Justin goes into the casino and says, I have no idea how to gamble, and then gets on a roulette wheel and walks out with like $500 in his pocket. It's like, I don't know how to gamble.
Well, and then we went to, did I tell you about Tampa when we went to Tampa a few months back?
I don't know, but I know you didn't tell me, but also, for the record, on that Vegas trip, I got slaughtered on a blackjack table. I mean, I had the dealer apologize to me. It was so ridiculous of a slaughter. Like, I hit a 21 and they hit blackjack. It's like, fam, what do you want me to do here right now?
Yeah. Well, so we went to Tampa, the Hard Rock out in Tampa, and we all, blackjack's the one to do. But the problem out there is, and I don't know if it was because of COVID or what, but after like 8 o'clock, and like, I'm not trying to spend a ton of money, like, we work in radio. We don't have that cash to be just throwing that around. I'm trying to buy a house. Like, it's a whole thing. So, I was like, all right, we'll go in there with like $300, $400 and we'll chill. And a table. It was $50 a hand for blackjack, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is like 4 hands and I could be out." And
Yeah.
so I played a little bit, and I actually did okay. Like, I got up for a while, and then I was down for a while. Like, I ended up playing longer than I thought I would. But then once I was out, I was just walking around getting drinks and kinda checking everything else out, and there was this one penny slot, like, right by the bathroom that was, like, away from all the others, and my buddy's like, "You should totally go and put, like, $10 in there and just do the max bet and see what happens." And so I go in there and it's penny slots. So I do the max bet and it's only like $3. And so I'm just like rapid fire hitting it to try to get it to take all my money essentially. And I hit their version of the jackpot. And it was penny slots, so it's not a lot of money, but it was like $150. So
Yeah, man, off $3 or whatever. Like, I'll take that every time.
So I cashed out. And then the next day we go back and I put that 100 into, or I put 20 of that 100 into another penny slot. And I hit the jackpot again and cashed out with another 100. And my buddies were like, "How are you getting $100 out of a penny slot like every day?"
Note to self: take Justin to every casino I go to. Like, I don't gamble often, but apparently I just need to have you with me at all times, and we're gonna be good.
You got to get me drunk to the point that, like, even when I'm losing the money, I'm having a good time, because that seems to be when the money starts flowing the right direction. So
well, that won't be difficult. Listen, I've known you for 8 years now, and I think that's a very achievable goal.
My new drink, by the way, okay, and I'll even shout out. This isn't sponsored. This isn't anything. They call it ranch water. It's
I've seen that. What is it?
So and honestly, I just make my own version now because, no offense to ranch water, it's expensive. It's like $9 for 4 cans, and it's like I can just make it at my house.
Right.
But it's tequila, soda, and lime. So it's just vodka and lime, but with tequila. And if you do it with the right tequila, you're not going to be hungover, because a good tequila is not going to do that to you. So it was my drink of choice for a while, and all of vacation I was on last week, I finished 2 whole bottles of tequila. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Tequila is the one liquor. I mean, I like bourbon and tequila. Those are the 2 liquors I really drink at this point. If I drink tequila is the one liquor where if you pay more money, it's actually worth it. Like, it truly gets better where like wine, when you like people drink wine, and I've heard basically, like, when I was at Disney Springs, I talked to the sommelier, and she basically told me that once you get to $100, it just gets marginally better. Like, you'll notice the difference between a $20 bottle and a $100 bottle, but it's all marginal after that. Tequila, tequila can get expensive, but the good money tequila is delicious. Like, it is worth every penny, to me at least.
I'm almost the opposite, where my dad, my first wedding, it sounds so bad saying first wedding, but my first wedding, my dad got a nice bottle of tequila, and he wanted to do a sipping tequila thing, like, to celebrate. And I'll tell you, like, it didn't taste any better than name a generic well tequila that you could get out at the beach bars. But I've noticed that if you drink it, like a more expensive one, you're not hungover. It is the way that I've kind of noticed it. And I'm like, okay, so it's the same taste to me. So yes, I will go with the more expensive one, because it's not going to kill me the next day. I'm not going to be, miserably hungover laying on the couch for 6 more hours.
Do you remember what kind of tequila it was?
I don't. I'll have to ask him what it was. It was the bottle was interesting, but he told me, like, I think he told me, like, just to order a shot of it was like $25 or something.
Was it painted blue?
There was,
like, it was white, like it's skinny and white and painted blue.
It might, yeah. There was blue on it.
It was probably Clase Azul. That's my guess. That's the one. Like, I know it's a more expensive tequila. They like hand paint every bottle. It's like, it's one of those things too, where it's like, it's like 20 a shot or something like that. But yeah, no, good tequila is good. I like Don Julio. That's probably my favorite. The Casamigos is good too. The Reposado one, the second one, that one is like step up from the Blanco one. That is good. That is good stuff. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. We are also good stuff. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Great NBA draft. Amazingly, everyone got the guy they wanted. In fact, they couldn't believe the guy was still on the board when they picked. Congrats to all.
Because
it's not a player.
I thought it was going to be Magic Johnson. I was pretty convinced. I was like, oh, there it is. It's got to be a Magic Johnson where it's just like a generic congratulations to everybody. But, oh man, I don't know. That's funny though. I do like that tweet.
He most recently served as the head coach for the New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh, Stan Van Gundy. Nice.
Yes. Stan Van, which is here's my cautionary tale with that. In any reality game show that I watch, and kind of in life, if you feel comfortable, like everybody's comfortable, that's not a great sign. Like that doesn't mean good things. Like if you're in a game show and you're like, I'm sitting pretty right now, that's probably not a good sign. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but wait. So what is that? I get what you're saying, but what do you like? What does that relate to Stan Van? I guess.
So like Stan Van's tweet says, amazingly, everyone got the guy they wanted. Actually, they were all surprised that they were on the board when they picked. Like, to me, is like, okay, if everybody's happy with the results, that's probably not a good sign, in my opinion.
You're thinking way too far into this, pal. Here's the joke, and it's going right over your head right now. Like it's just a joke, making fun of everybody's optimism after draft day. There's no deeper meaning to this.
I don't know. Listen, I'm just saying.
I'm going to remind me to buy you a new sarcasm detector before next episode. Hey, before next episode too, leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We will read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, we're on Stitcher, Google Play Store, Amazon Music, Spreaker, Player FM, TuneIn, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep. And be sure to find us on YouTube if you want to see clips of the show, specific clips of the show, or just the full version of the podcast with a few video versions of us, sitting in the studios and talking basketball. You can find us there, Drive and Dish podcast on YouTube.
And now a word from our sponsors.
So the NBA draft is over. Cade Cunningham going number 1 overall to the Detroit Pistons. I don't think anybody was very surprised by that. What do you think about Cade? You think he has the potential to be the star that everyone kind of says he's going to be at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the kid. I think he's a 3-level scorer. I think he would have gone number 1 last year. Yeah. I think this is a franchise changer for Detroit. He's the guy that you build around. And Detroit's already got a couple of other good young guys as well. I mean, obviously they've got Jeremy Grant on that contract, who's a good player. Sadiq Bey was good for them in his rookie year last year. So there's a lot to be excited about in Detroit. He's the guy that potentially takes your rebuild to the next level. And just where you look at where the franchise has been. I mean, obviously they won a title in the 2000s. We all know about that team with Sheed and with Rip Hamilton and Ben Wallace and all those other guys. They've pretty much been floating in limbo since then. I mean, they had a couple of years of making the playoffs, but it's kind of one of, is it really, do you really make the playoffs if you're the 8th seed and you get swept out in the first round? Like it's a Pyrrhic victory almost, essentially.
Sure. Yeah.
And so to that point, I think here now you have real excitement. You can, you have the foundation of something. I know Dwayne Casey obviously talked about how he excited he was to bring him in. I mean, this was obvious to me. It was just all smoke screens. Like everyone knew Cade was going 1. He was at Tigers games with management. I cracked me up that Woj was courteous enough to bomb it like 7 hours before the draft started, which it's like, duh, we all knew this was going to happen, but it's just that, I mean, it's hilarious to me. But yeah, I mean,
by the way, I don't know if did you watch like I guess it was ESPN's broadcast of the NBA draft at all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was watching I was flipping. I mean, I ended up going to ABC, but I watched because I started. So I was at work still when it started, and when I was at work, I was watching it on ESPN. And then when I was driving home and got home, I flipped it on ABC.
Because I know, because the problem we had is we were switching between that and the U.S. gymnastics when they were going for gold. So we were kind of bouncing back and forth. But what bothered me, I don't know why it did, but when Woj would talk, he would every time he was making a point, he would pop. I don't know why he would bounce in his seat.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, bro, chill out. It's okay. Calm down.
He's excited. He knows the news before everybody.
Oh yeah. He probably had the whole draft lined out, but whatever. to that, something else that they did bring up in the broadcast is, do you see this as another win for the G League? I mean, you had Jalen Green and oh god, I'm not even going to be able to pronounce his last
Kuminga.
Minga. There you go. From the Ignite, both from the Ignite, going to Houston and Golden State, 2 and 7. So you had 2 picks out of the top 10 from the G League. I mean, that's got to be a good win too, right?
Oh, I think it's huge for the G League because it's instant legitimacy. Obviously, Jalen Green going 2 would have been that alone, but the fact that you had 2 top 10 picks. Now, the question is going to be, because the draw for the G League is that you get paid, plain and
Sure.
simple. Like, you
Well,
get paid, you
yeah,
play against other professionals. Now with college and with the NCAA in the Supreme Court ruling, where college athletes are now allowed to make images off their likeness, off sponsorships, off things that we already kind of knew they were doing under the table, but now it's out in the light. They're openly
yeah.
able to recruit and market themselves. This is where I wonder, where it's like, it's tough because that was the whole real appeal to the G League. I think they're going to be up against, I mean, yes, it added legitimacy in the sense, in that regard, and it's huge for the Ignite. But I'm also sitting here and I'm like, man, college just got a whole lot more appealing again.
Well, and I guess the question is, how much, maybe the top picks, like you're saying, 1 through, I don't know, say 25, but I guess I almost counter myself before I even say it. But, could a player who's maybe on a smaller team, but the best player on the smaller team make more by going to the G League and taking the salary than maybe what they would make off their image and likeness?
I mean, potentially. That's the thing, is because it's tough with smaller programs. Because on the opposite side, if you're the guy in like your particular area, so like Steph Curry, for example, let's use him. He
Right.
went to Davidson, obviously not a super traditional basketball powerhouse, but Steph Curry was the man when that NCAA tournament was happening. Look at somebody like a Jimmer Fredette at BYU, like
Oh yeah.
how big he was when he was going crazy in college. It's a situation where, yeah, you're not at that big basketball powerhouse like Kentucky, like Duke, like Villanova,
Yeah.
but you're also that big, you're that big fish in a small pond. So I think you maybe can make that endorsement money too
Well,
if you're that guy. And now, is that 100%? No, of course not. And if the G League pays you more, like, yeah, I would absolutely understand that route. But
well,
it's
and
nice that these guys have options. But these bigger schools are going to have money too.
Well, and I would also say too, like, to that, I went to Flagler down in St. Augustine. That's a D2 in the Peach Belt Conference, and I know our star. I mean, last year, for D2 March Madness, Flagler went pretty far. They were in the Final Four. So Jazik is coming back next year. And in that, when everything opened up, I've already seen him post 2 or 3 things about like locals, like a St. Augustine pizza shop that he's working with now. And so there's things going on that I'm looking at, and I'm like, oh, I wonder how much he's actually making off this. And if for him specifically, obviously, I mean, if you're D2 or D3, then the name, image, and likeness can be even better from that aspect in terms of like a small little area that's going to be hyper focused on you.
Yeah. Well, and if you're a D2 or a D3 guy, a lot of the times anyway, like, I don't think you're even at the level that you would be considering the G League Ignite. Like, that's not to say nobody has ever come out. I mean, we just talked about the Pistons. Ben Wallace was a D2 guy.
Yeah.
But that, again, we're talking about very, very few exceptions here to the rule. And the guys who likely are going to play on the G League Ignite team aren't really D2 caliber. Like, we're talking about D1 level guys.
Right. Right. So, I guess in your list of everybody's draft, were there any specific teams that kind of stuck out to you as winners?
Well, the first one right away to me is this is a little homerism, and no, I promise it's not about the Sixers. It's actually about the Magic.
I mean,
I
that was
thought this was best case scenario for the Orlando Magic. I mean, they went into the situation, and it was classic Magic, and that's the vibe around Orlando, where they lose all these games and they have 2 picks with 5 and 8, but you're in a situation where it just kind of feels like you're going to miss out on that guaranteed high end talent a little bit.
right.
Like, Cade is going to be off the board. It was pretty obvious that Jalen Green was going to be off the board at number 2 to Houston. Evan Mobley was going to be off the board to Cleveland at 3. Like, and that's kind of going back to the episode I did with Lewis last week. Shout out again to Lewis for coming on. where we thought it was going to kind of be chalky at the top. The
Yeah.
only potential for anything is what happened with Toronto, as we said, man, maybe they're the wild card. Maybe they take somebody who, we thought could be in that second tier, if you will, that 1A tier compared to the 1 tier where it's Cade and the guys that I just mentioned. And so when Toronto took Scotty Barnes, and again, I don't even necessarily think that's a bad pick for Toronto. I think Scotty Barnes is more of a potential developmental guy, but I think there's more risk with taking Scotty Barnes. Where with taking Jalen Suggs, like this is the guy that Orlando's been looking for. Like Orlando has a lot of good young players, but they just are missing that high-end talent guy. Here with Jalen Suggs, I think you have the upside to be that guy that you build around. Obviously, this is a franchise that's going through a lot of change. Evan Fournier is gone. Nick Vucevic is gone. Aaron Gordon is gone. It's been a really pretty bad overall since Dwight Howard left. It's kind of the same deal as Detroit, where, yeah, they made the playoffs a couple of times, but you largely get bounced in the first round. Now here you look at this roster, and assuming health, you've got Jonathan Isaac, a guy who I'm still really high on, again, assuming health, which you do have to factor in after his injuries. But it's like you got Jonathan Isaac. Cole Anthony looked pretty good as a rookie last year. RJ Hampton's a guy who still has some potential. Obviously, Markelle Fultz is going to be coming off injury, but he showed signs there as well. Terrence Ross is still there in the mix. He's not a young guy, but he's that type of bench veteran or a guy that you can move and still has value. I'm almost a little surprised that he didn't get moved at draft day. I thought there'd be a couple of contenders who might want to try to pick him up on the cheap. But no, I think the Magic are onto something. And on top of that, like if they had just drafted Suggs, it would have been a really great draft and they would have been in the winners category for me no matter what. Like that's best case scenario for Orlando. Then on top of it, you draft Franz Wagner. Now, I'm not a super Franz Wagner fan, but I do think if nothing else, he can defend his rear end off. And so I think the defensive potential for this Magic team, obviously with him and Isaac, is pretty terrifying. And then, really these other guys, Suggs looks to be a pretty good defender. Markelle Fultz looked like a good defender when he was healthy last year. So if Jalen Suggs is the guy, it just, to me, it gets the Magic out of neutral a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier to fill in the role players when you have that one guy. And to me, it looks like they have a lot of role players. And that's not even including Chuma Okeke, who I haven't mentioned. But now, if you can build around Jalen Suggs and figure out who's going to work there, I think you're on to something. And I think this is the type of Orlando team that could start creeping up on somebody. There are a lot of good players there now if everybody stays healthy.
Well, and we should make sure to note the Mo Bamba slander that you just threw.
Oh, yeah, I have it. I'm sorry. And Mo's a great guy, but I don't think he's very good.
Sure. And so like to that, the second they did get Suggs, my first thought was, oh, it's going to be cool to see him with Cole Anthony. And I hadn't even thought of Fultz because the injury made me forget that he was there, just because he hadn't really played. But yeah, you're saying like you can get a fast paced offense going with, Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, and then like you were saying with Wagner, like you have the depth that it always felt like Orlando didn't have. Like an injury would derail Orlando's season every year, it feels like. And I feel like, and maybe it's just because it's an outside perspective, but I feel like you could go back the past 4 or 5 years and pinpoint like 3 specific injuries that have ruined all of those seasons,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've dealt with a ton. I mean, obviously last year they dealt with a ton.
Yeah.
And then even before that, and I think with drafts too in Orlando, it's been kind of infamous because, going back to the one draft that's really infamous here is 2018 because they won 1 game late and it kept them out of 5. What happened at 5? I mean, technically Luka got drafted, but it was the Luka Trae Young situation where it was like you were going to come away with either one of those guys, both who look like franchise players right now. That would have certainly sped up this Orlando rebuild as well. Instead, you're 1 pick away. You end up drafting Mo Bamba, who largely has busted at this point. Now, again, he's going to get a chance this year. Like Mo Bamba's still on this roster. He's going to be competing for minutes with Wendell Carter, who's still pretty young himself as well. But it's like the reality is he hasn't been able to beat out anybody. Like he didn't beat out Khem Birch. If you can't beat out Khem Birch and you're number 6 overall, it's kind of like, what are we doing here? Khem is at best a solid backup big. And so it's disappointing. It hasn't been there, but he'll still get a shot. He's on the roster. So,
well, and to that, you hope Suggs can obviously be some sort of equivalent to a Trae Young or a Luka in that situation, obviously, but we'll see. And obviously that would be best case scenario for the Orlando Magic if that's the case, because man, oh man, it would be fun times in Orlando if that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of fun
Mhm.
times in Orlando. I think this was great for the fans too. The fans need something to be happy about. Kind of the same way I feel about Detroit, where it's like they need something that's going to put butts in seats.
Something, yeah.
Jalen Suggs does that.
Well, and I think Jalen Suggs does that, and you come off the, I don't even want to say hype, but you come off the excitement that was Cole Anthony, and so you have that, and you saw the potential with the improvement from Markelle Fultz. So like you've got a little bit of a forward momentum now, right? And let's see if they can capitalize on it and keep it moving forward. Um, Another team that I think that I would, which I'll, by the way, before we move on, I saw that NBA.com only gave Orlando a B plus, which I thought was kind of surprising, but um, we can we can move on from that. The Pelicans, I think, should be in the winner category in a way. They got Trey Murphy at 17, Herb Jones at 35. Murphy is one of the better 3-and-D guys in the class from everything I was reading about him. And he can shoot, which is helpful, which is something that Zion, I think, wants, and I think helps Brandon Ingram in terms of spacing. So I think you like that. And everything I've heard about heard about Herb, I don't know why that threw me off for a second. Heard about him is that he's a great defensive player, SEC player of the year and defensive player of the year. So, you get another defensive guy too to help out. And I think hopefully these two draft picks can show Zion or Zion's family, whoever likes talking to the media, that they are working on getting him some players around him and they're working towards something awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they got a lot of work to do,
Yes.
no doubt about it. I mean, not just I mentioned the coaching search a billion times, finding some stability there. Hopefully, they find that with Willie Green. But yeah, to your point, I did like the Pelicans draft as well. I mean, a couple of teams that stand out. Like I'm gonna kind of go rapid fire with it. I mean, basically everything in the top three I liked. I like Jalen Green at Houston. I think that was a good pick. I like Evan Mobley's fit in Cleveland a lot. I think he and Jared Allen are a really solid front court. You've got Okoro, you've got Colin Sexton, you've got Darius Garland. Like that's another team like Orlando where it's like, hey, I really think they're onto something. They could be a potential breakout. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team necessarily, but they may make some noise in the Eastern Conference. Like I think they can build off of, kind of what we saw at the start for them last year. They were pretty bad down the stretch, but at the beginning of the season, they were one of the better stories. The other one for me too is Charlotte. I think Charlotte smoked this draft. Um, the fact that James Bouknight fell to 11 feels like a steal. I think he's a guy that could have gone, 7, 8. I mean, he was with that second Orlando pick. He was a guy that I thought could have gone there. I think he fits in really well with LaMelo Ball, so that's great. And then they get Kai Jones at 19. I think he's another guy with a lot of potential. So the fact that I mean, again, if they had just added Bouknight, I think to me it would have been a success for Charlotte. Now you add Kai Jones, who's somebody who I think has some upside, somebody that you were able to get obviously a lot later via trade at 19. That's a really, I mean, Charlotte already last year was one of the more fun teams to watch in the league, but I genuinely think in terms of entertainment perspective, Charlotte is must see TV this year.
I think so too. I like the idea of that. It was one of those things where I don't think many people are going to have their eyes on Charlotte. They made a little bit of noise last year, at least being better than we thought they would. Um, and so maybe they can capitalize on that. But do you think it's enough to maybe potentially make a run at the playoffs?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I think they were mostly there for last year. I think I mean, and last year too, LaMelo Ball he was playing, but he was still dealing with that wrist injury. No, and they didn't have Gordon Hayward either. So yeah, no, I think Charlotte's absolutely going to be in the contention to get into the playoffs this year. Would obviously would be huge for that young core.
Right.
And it just kind of gives them depth too. Like they're going to have Devontae Graham decisions, they're going to have PJ Washington decisions. Um, and so this kind of gives them flexibility as well moving forward. So I like the way that they're set up. A couple of others. Let's see, who else did I really like here? I mean, is there anybody? We've been talking a lot of winners. Is there anybody like right off the rip that you just didn't like at all?
Well, I've got two that I said were losers, and you can either disagree or agree with me. I said the Heat and the Timberwolves. They had no picks.
Okay, I mean
Zero picks.
that's fair. I mean, I feel like it's almost more of an eye, like you give them an incomplete or something. But yes, they had no picks, so that's fair.
Because it's two teams that I think need to do something, and so the fact that you didn't have picks kind of puts you in a hard spot to begin with. like maybe not necessarily the Heat. I don't know. Like both teams, in my opinion, need to fix something on their team, and not really having a draft pick to potentially trade with somebody or not necessarily being able to get one makes it hard to do that.
Well, the Heat are so good at finding talent too.
I
Like that's the thing is that's somebody you would have. I mean, look at all the guys that they've developed here over these last couple of years. That you would obviously want them to take more swings at it. Minnesota, I mean, at least you have Anthony Edwards still. Like
Yeah,
that's the thing is with him
yeah.
and Towns and with D'Angelo Russell. Like there's you could see them feasibly getting better. But I agree. I'm not saying they're
Why not add?
nearly ready to
Yeah.
contend at all. So I completely understand that. Are those the only two losers you got just because they have picks, or do you have somebody else?
No, I got another one. So I have one more winner and one more loser. And
Okay.
so my loser is going to be, and I don't, again, loser makes it sound like they totally botched it. And that's not what I think about this, but I think Sacramento raised some eyebrows getting Davion Mitchell. First off, I wanted the Jazz to get him so that it would just be insanely confusing. But also he like if like what are you guys, he's a guard, so like you have De'Aaron Fox, you have Halliburton, like are you just going for depth and that's what you're going for? But it doesn't feel like the Sacramento Kings need to go for depth in that situation. You know what I mean?
No, I don't really know how he fits. Like you got Halliburton, you got De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
Where do the minutes come from? Like, and that's nothing against him as a prospect. I just think from a fit perspective, it's pretty weird there. And so, no, I agree with Sacramento. It's just more of like I don't really know what the direction here is, but I guess that's something that we can say for Sacramento all the time.
And hey, there was the rumors, and we'll get into more rumors, but there was a De'Aaron Fox rumor linked with the 76ers at one point. So maybe they are shopping him a little bit, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean 100%. What did you think about the Warriors?
I feel like they did decent. Do you think so? So everything I've been reading about the Warriors is that they got a lot of players that will make them good once this run/window's closed, but they'll be able to help with this window right now.
See,
And that in my mind means they're going to ship them off to get a bigger name player to come in and potentially use them as trade bait.
well, and so with Kaminga and with Moses Moody, I think these are both like these are potential picks.
Sure.
Kaminga, the comparison that everybody is making is Jaylen Brown, where they come into the draft, and obviously Jaylen Brown has worked out pretty great for the Celtics,
Yeah.
but they're they're very athletic. They have tons of intangibles that you can't teach, but they almost need to put it together a little more. Like these are guys that could very well be starting in the G League or just playing
Sure.
minutes for the Warriors. And so it's not that I'm down on either of those picks. Like that's fine. And apparently Draymond Green, if you believe the reports, had say in this, which I thought was interesting.
Well, if they think him and Curry and Thompson can also help develop these guys along, like there's got to be something to that as well, you know?
But that's my question, is we just saw how good Steph Curry is still.
Yeah.
We saw what he did last year, how he almost basically willed this team into the playoffs by himself. It was just him and Dre at one point. You're getting Clay back, but that's a core that's getting older. Am I going for potential picks when I mean, because James Wiseman, they said it feels like a developmental guy too. That could like great in 4 or 5 years, that's fine. And maybe that works out in one regard, but it just feels kind of weird to me to be like, I feel like they should be trying to win now. Like you should be maximizing every minute you have of Steph Curry like this.
I agree, but do you think they saw what they were able to do with just Steph Curry essentially and go, okay, we add Klay Thompson to that opens things up even more, and then you know Wiseman and them can come along and maybe they get more room to work because of the spacing, the extra spacing. You know, maybe they think Klay Thompson coming back will open up a lot and sway things more in their favor.
That's a big bet on that, I guess, is my question. And I do think obviously Klay will make a big difference coming back, but it's not even about Klay as much to me as it was all about the Warriors supporting cast last year. Like, you know what you'll get out of Wiggins at this point, but where else does it come from? And that's kind of the question I have. The Warriors haven't exactly been great at developing young guys over these past couple of years. And so that's the question too, where it's like, I've got a team who's basically developing two projects. they haven't exactly been great at it. I'm really leaning a lot on those guys to contribute if they're going to make a real title run. And I guess I'm just a little surprised with that thinking when you have a guy like Steph Curry. Like, I guess I feel like I try to get somebody who can contribute right now.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, and I think that's the case, but I'm trying to uh you're trying to view it from their perspective of what they might be thinking picking those guys. And then again, I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a decent season from these guys or, whatever, then you may also be able to package them and land yourself a bigger player, in a year from now, if they can get a year out of them and they play well and you do that.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I just, again, they're gambling a little more than I would like. And it's not even about those two guys. Like, I think Kuminga, if everything hits, can be a really good NBA player.
It
Same with
was,
Moses Moody.
yeah.
It's just, we got to see.
It was a move. It was a long-term move and not a win now move, which is what you should be doing when you have Curry and potentially Klay Thompson in win now mode. And I
Yes.
agree with that, which is why I actually have this next team as a win. They also did not have any picks because they traded it. They traded the number 29 pick to the Nets for Landry Shamet, I should say. And I think that's a win now move for the Suns. You get a guy that's got the experience, some playoff experience, some decent shooting. And, everything I read about this was a move that could fill campaign if he does leave in free agency.
Yeah, I'm fine with going out and getting Shamit. Like, I don't think he super moves the needle
No,
in
but
another way.
the Suns,
But
you don't need a rookie to be doing that.
no, he's a good solid pickup. I'm almost amazed how many times just Landry Shamit's been traded at this point, and they've all been on good teams. But it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like he's been on what 4 or 5 teams now. It's Phoenix's 5th team. He was
He
on,
was
he
on
was on the Clippers. He was on Philly.
Philly, Clippers, Brooklyn, now Phoenix. Yeah.
Okay, so Phoenix will be 4. So wow, what a start for Landry Shamit.
I guess the longest he's been on a team is 2 years.
Yeah,
for 2.
that's crazy. I like the Nets draft a lot. I thought Cam Thomas was a good pickup for them. I will say that. Who else do we got? I like the Nuggets draft. I thought Bones Highland is a really good pick at 26. The Knicks, it felt like we're just making trades to make trades at one point. It was almost comical. Obviously trading back so many times.
Well, the joke everyone was making was more on the Thunder making trades for more picks.
Well, yeah, I mean the Thunder just steady finding ways to get first rounders out here. Giddey could be a good pick for them, though. I'm not necessarily too down on that. I don't know. I mean, the only one that just really I think stunned everybody across the board was the Spurs drafting Josh Primo. I mean, no one had Joshua Primo that high on their list. I mean, there were some people that didn't. I don't think had him in the first round, and so the fact that he was up all the way. I mean, he cracked me. His agent, like, he thought his agent was kidding when he said he was getting drafted at that point, which I feel like is not great.
Yeah, maybe don't say that one out loud.
And he's really young, so I understand that. And I don't want to, like, again, maybe the Spurs are seeing something that everybody else is not. But like, wow, that was a stunner for me.
That's one of those. We'll either look back at that and go, "Wow, who would have saw? How did he drop so low?" And shout out to the Spurs for getting it. Or it's going to be like, what were they thinking? Because whoever go, say 13, 14, 15 are going to be this huge star.
Yeah, and I'm leaning more till the what are they thinking right now.
Sure.
And my final thing is I will be a homer here with Jaden Springer. Apparently he's working with Markelle Fultz as shooting coach, and I swear to God, if the Sixers don't get him away from Keith Williams, then we just need to I saw a clip of him working, and there was a hitch in that jump shot, and I was like, fam, if we're going through this again, like I'd get Daryl Morey on the phone, and we need to knock this off.
Well, it'll be a tease to my ball-in, but it has something to do that will probably upset you.
Oh, God. All right. Well, I guess that gets us right in to who's balling, who's falling, our NBA version of the stock market. We always like start with good before the bad, though apparently I'm going to be upset with Justin's balling. So I guess just go ahead, Just upset me. Listen, what do we got?
My ballin's going to go out to Richard Jefferson. I don't know if you saw his tweet, but he pretty much, here's his response tweet, and then I'll explain what happened. He goes, "Wow, Jerry Colangelo, You should have used your burner account for that statement. This is arrogance. How about protecting the player that decided to come play for the USA when so many people told y'all no year after year? This should really help recruitment of vets, ... So here's what happened. Colangelo was talking about what happened with Kevin Love and Team USA. And here was his comment. He goes, I didn't think Kevin Love was going to play. I wasn't sure he even had much left to play. He reached out to us and said he was in shape and said he felt he owed us. And on the basis of that, we're looking for someone with international experience who was at one time a heck of a rebounder and could still shoot the ball. You know, like being a 12th man on the roster. Well, it didn't work out. He wasn't in shape and he was way behind, as it turns out. So you move on. Call it a mistake. Call it giving someone an opportunity. Someone had equity with us.
Yeah. So that it's funny because. So first off, I guess, do you have the bleep button handy? Do you have marker? Are you doing live markers on this?
I can write something down. Sure.
Okay. I would say, do you know what time it is? So we put a bleep in.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Fuck Jerry Colangelo. Okay. Did I make that clear as possible? Here, let me get my money's worth. Fuck Jerry Colangelo. That gets right into my fallen this week, actually. So I guess we can go ahead. I'll start with fallen. Usually start with good before the bad, but that was exactly my fallen for Jerry Colangelo and his stupid comments. And I'm glad that Richard Jefferson stuck up for him because you know what this was? It was completely unnecessary.
Right.
It was completely unnecessary to flame Kevin Love like this. If it didn't work out, fine. But this is a guy who's been in your program before, who's won 2 gold medals with Team USA. Like, Richard Jefferson is right. What is going to inspire a vet who has done this a couple of times before to go out in a thing where, if anything has been clear about Team USA so far, is that we should probably be trying to field as best of the team as we can as possible. Yeah. Maybe, make sure we have our best rosters going over there. This isn't going to help somebody who's on the fringe like that. It's disrespectful. And like Jerry Colangelo just needs to get away from the NBA. Like, I never want to hear this dude's name again. I'm so sick of this guy.
Well, and it's just like, man, like, there's not necessarily the most positive vibes around Team USA basketball right now because they're struggling with teams and losing to teams. So it was like, why are we making it even worse now? Like, what are we doing here,
Yeah, I'm sorry I made your editing life a little harder, but,
honestly, I'm not going to do it on our YouTube video. So if you want to see the unfiltered version, there you go. So what is your ball in then?
So my ball, it's kind of a sad ballin', but I don't really want to call this as fallen. So in the NBA at the draft, my ballin' is Terrence Clark. Terrence Clark was a prospect at the University of Kentucky. He was 19 years old. He was more than likely going to get drafted to the NBA. Unfortunately, he was tragically killed in a car crash. The NBA had his family there. They, basically, drafted him essentially. The NBA as a league drafted him. They do this for special occasions. It's an honorary thing, but obviously, an extremely tough situation. Tough to see his family there on what would have been a super duper special night for them. And again, rest in peace, Terrence Clark. But shout out to the NBA, shout out to his family for getting that done and having a cool moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was really cool. I actually saw people that I didn't know were fans of basketball tweeting about that moment. So I was kind of like, oh, cool. A lot of people are taking notice of this. So my fallen is going to go to Kendrick Perkins, and the way he was trying to say Moses Moody struggled so bad. It was honestly impressive.
They got to get Perkins off the broadcast, man. I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to be, because everybody dunks on Kendrick Perkins, but it's just like, we got to get Kendrick Perkins off these national broadcasts, man.
Especially, I mean, you and I pick up on things a little bit because we know what you're supposed to not say and say. And there's a few times he'll say something and I'll be like, I could see the producer behind the boards being like, oh, what does he do? Stop.
And it's so universal. That's the thing is, it's like there's not even a segment of NBA Twitter that defends. I've never heard a single person go, maybe when he first started putting little clips out, but there was never a moment where I go, oh man, Kendrick Perkins just smashed that segment. It's just constant annoyance.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know what he needs to do, but he needs to do something like almost maybe go have his own show, like a stream show where he can just talk about whatever, maybe, and he can be as unfiltered as he needs to be, But
carry on, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. It wasn't great. All right, so NBA draft night wasn't just filled with prospects. It was full of a couple trade. Well, some trades that happened and some trades that didn't happen.
Sure.
The
Yeah.
biggest one, without a doubt, is our pal Russell Westbrook going to Los Angeles Lakers
Yeah.
for Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, for Kentavious Caldwell Pope,
Yep.
and picks as well. For Russell Westbrook, pretty crazy. His fourth team in 4 years with OKC.
And the Lakers are now the first team to have multiple former MVPs on their roster since the 2021 Brooklyn Nets.
Okay. All right. Nice. With Russell, with LeBron. This is interesting because, and I saw you tweet about this, and because it's completely true. If you look at the Lakers starting lineup on paper, now I don't know what they're going to do with Andre Drummond. That's still a TBD.
Sure.
But assuming Drummond's gone, you've got Marc Gasol back. So you've got Marc Gasol or Andre Drummond, either one. You've got Anthony Davis. You've got LeBron. You've got Talon Horton-Tucker. And you've got Russell Westbrook. Now, I know they've been trying to play LeBron off ball a lot more.
Sure.
But that spacing is terrible.
Well, I was actually trying to look it up quick. LeBron, what's everyone's 3-point percentage, right? Like, who might be the best 3-point shooter?
It's LeBron, I think. It's LeBron by far.
Are you sure? Because, like, for whatever reason, I want to say it's, like, Gasol for some reason.
Well, he's probably taking less a game. It could be. AD's not a bad 3-point shooter either. But
I know.
Here's my thing. If you're playing AD at the 5 and you get AD to commit to the 5, which, mind you, this is something he hasn't done. But if Anthony Davis is fully willing to commit to the 5 in this starting lineup, and you have LeBron, you have Russ, makes a little more sense to me if you put two shooters around him. You can make the spacing work. I think they can make it happen. Like, I do think Russell Westbrook was playing better in Houston than people remember, and then it just kind of all went south in the bubble.
Sure.
That Washington team just wasn't really going anywhere fast. I mean, they kind of were. And honestly, they played pretty well down the stretch. Like, him and Bradley Beal got them into the playoffs. That's sure. Better than they certainly were looking at one point. That said, it's going to be interesting because, like you said, it feels like this is going away from what the NBA is with modern spacing and with just the way the game is gone. There's going to be a lot of slashing and kicking. I'm interested to see how it works. I think there's a scenario where if this all goes right, that I genuinely think that this can work pretty well for the Lakers.
Okay.
Here's the reality. If I'm looking at that scenario 8 times, I think that's like 1 out of the 8 that goes right. The other 7 of the 8 of me are alarm bells going off in my head going, how does this fit make remotely any sense right now? Especially if AD is not playing the 5. At that point, it's just the lane is just permanently clogged.
So I'm trying to, yep. Okay, I can confirm it. I was trying to see where the Lakers' most threes came from last year, and I had to do it really wonky way, but we ended up finding it. Out of the entire NBA, who do you think made the most threes for the Lakers last year, and where do you think that is in relation to everybody else in the NBA?
Oh, the most threes for the Lakers last year? You're talking regular season or playoffs?
Good question. Regular season totals.
Don't
overthink it because.
Is it KCP?
No, it's Kuzma.
Oh, really? Wow. I didn't think it'd be Kuz. I would have guessed Schroeder or KCP or even LeBron before I guess Kuz.
According to this, it is Kuzma. He had 137 threes made, which is one better than Trae Young, actually. Kind of surprising. But that's for 45th in the league. So 45 other players have had more threes last year, scoring-wise, not percentage-wise. But there are, so that's the first time the Lakers even show up on this graph.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can go to page 2. I see LeBron at 93. He made 104 last year. So, here's another one. KCP, there he was. He made 120 last year at 69. What's up, 69?
Nice.
Yeah. Actually, there's a tie for 69. D'Angelo Russell and Kentavious Caldwell Pope. So, actually, a 3-way tie. So, there we go. So,
yeah,
man, you traded your top 2 3-point scorers. And actually, I guess I should see where Westbrook is on this list.
Well, I'm fine with the haul. Like, that's the thing is, like, Trez, you can't play past the first round of the playoffs, or at least with the way that Lakers lineup was set, it seems like, because it felt that way with the Clippers too. So I'm okay
Right.
with that. Kuzma won a title there, and like Kuzma, I just think like he was never going to be that third option that Westbrook potentially can be. And so at that point, it's just kind of the cost of doing business. Like, Kuz was good last year, and he also slumped at times last year. So I think that that's fine. And then KCP, it's just more of the contract. I mean, KCP had a great finals for them. Do I think he's a good shooter? Absolutely. He's definitely a good 3-point shooter. But again,
But do that.
cost doing business.
To that again, I get it, cost of doing business, but you traded two guys that had over 100 and some 3-pointers for you to bring in a guy who made 86 3-pointers last year at a 31% clip, who is 127th in the league. Made one more. Actually, Kevin Durant's down there too. He's been dealing with injury. But you know what I mean? Like the optics of that feel weird, and that's why I was bringing that up. Is like there's just going to be no shooting. Like, what are we going to do?
Well, yeah, it's going to be like it's funny because they compared them in Brooklyn. Everybody naturally makes that comparison. It's like you look at all the spacing that Brooklyn has, and you just look at how the Lakers are going. Nah, we're not doing that at all right now. Like I said, I'm going to be interested to see what they do with the 5, and I think they got to fill it out with shooters. I mean, they tried to get Buddy Hield. Like that's the other thing is apparently that trade fell through. See, that makes a ton of sense to me. Like going out to get Buddy Hield is exactly the move that I think they should be trying to make. Again, there are scenarios where I think this can work. And I do think Russ is still a great playmaker. He's still a great passer. They're trying to move LeBron off ball. So I think there are ways where this makes sense. I also think that Russ is playing to win a title right now. Like I think Russell Westbrook is aware of the situation he's in. He wants to play meaningful basketball. Like he just hasn't really since Houston. And I mean, even at the end at OKC, they were flaming out of the playoffs pretty early. He wants to be in a situation where we contend. So I don't think we're going to see Russell Westbrook on a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis jacking bad corner threes at the
No,
end of games or jacking contested mid-range jumpers. Like if that happens, it's not going to work, just
no.
straight up. But I don't think I'm willing to give Russ the benefit of the doubt there. I genuinely don't think he's going to do that.
I hope you're right. I just don't know. Like if you're I mean, obviously it's going to be LeBron taking the shot most likely, but it's just like, man, if you're tied up and you've got 3 seconds left and you got to run something, it's like, what are you going to do? There's a lot going on there that I'm not sure I understand. So
there's a lot going on there I'm not sure I understand, and that kind of gets us. I mean, that's a great segue into Washington. And with Washington, it's not to the extent that I guess I am with the Lakers, because I totally get why you trade for Kuz and Harrell and all these other guys. Their haul makes sense, and given Westbrook's contract as well, like I don't really know what else you're going to get. To me, though, I guess I'm surprised here because I figured when Russ was moving, that was your writing on the wall with, okay, it's time for Bradley Beal to move. They were good last year. That team probably hit its ceiling. They're building around young guys. Like I'm not trying to run Bradley Beal necessarily out of a market. I'm not trying to be that guy, but I'm also like for him and the Wizards, I'm both kind of sitting here like, what are we doing?
they're
I
both
want to see Bradley Beal play meaningful basketball, and I want to see the Wizards max their young haul so that they can fully rebuild and build a team up properly so that they can actually contend for something. Now, I get it because you don't I don't think you lightly trade somebody as talented as Bradley Beal is. And Bradley Beal, every time he says that we want to trade him and that everyone is trying to send him places, he keeps doubling down. Like he's the one that signed that extension in DC, and he's the one that came out and said, "No, I'm here. I want to play in the Washington. I want to keep this thing going." But I guess I'm just surprised. Like it feels like it's just time. It feels like it's best for both parties right now to move on.
It's yes, it's well, it almost feels like one of those situations where actually both parties are being too loyal to each other. You know, like you don't see that much anymore where you're just willing to trade off your guys and move on, and when it's time, and players move away from it. So we don't run into a situation where both sides are being loyal and everyone else is like, yo, we need to change this up. Like, what are you guys doing? Why are we still doing this? But maybe if you're Bradley Beal, you feel like you saw some progress at the end of last season, and yes, Westbrook's gone, but you got this young haul of shooters and guys that are young and energetic. So like you think, all right, let's see what we can do with this team. Like I could see why he wouldn't want to move on, but I also from a selfish basketball fan standpoint want him to move on, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the Wizards have some good young players. Like Hakamura looks good. Daniel Gafford was really solid for them down the stretch last year. We'll see what happens. But again, I think I want to see Bradley Beal play more meaningful basketball. It's as simple as that. And again, I do genuinely believe if they get the proper haul, it would be the best for the Wizards. I
I agree.
promise that's not a Sixers homer, even though I would love Bradley Beal to
Well,
be on the Sixers.
to that, it almost flips over to the rumor that was around Ben Simmons yesterday, which got a lot of laughs from reporters that the Sixers wanted Andrew Wiggins, Wiseman, and 4 first-round picks for Ben Simmons. Do you think that's too much?
I think I just hate that deal all around, and I think it's a smokescreen. Like, no, I don't necessarily think it's too much for Ben Simmons because I don't know. I mean, look, I get it with Ben Simmons' offensive struggles, but it's tough for me because Ben Simmons really is elite everywhere else. Like, he is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. Like, he's an excellent passer. He's incredibly physically gifted. Like, there's still room to buy on Ben Simmons. I just hated that deal and really what the Warriors could offer in general because it's just not really helpful to anything. Like what? The Sixers are getting at 7 and 14. And so you draft two guys that maybe help you now, but I think Embiid's in a win now situation, kind of like how I feel the Warriors are with Steph.
Sure.
You get Wiseman, who plays the same exact position, and you get Andrew Wiggins. So
Well,
realistically, you upgraded the team by Andrew Wiggins and 2 rookies. Like, I
well,
don't think that's the title shifting. Like,
no,
if I'm going to trade Ben Simmons, that doesn't shift the team enough for me. Like, and I understand the Sixers are aiming high, but even at that point, if I'm settling for a CJ McCollum or a Malcolm Brogdon type player, or even a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who was rumored, which I don't really know why OKC would want to move him. That was kind of weird to me. But
yeah.
those fit to me way better than whatever Golden State was offering. Like, I just don't think Golden State can offer a good package for Ben Simmons.
Well, and to that, I was kind of thinking, I thought 2 things with it. One, maybe there was an idea to get those players and maybe also then flip those players maybe with some of those first to get a different, like another team involved. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then on top of that, maybe it was to raise expectations from other teams in what they should potentially consider as an offer for Ben Simmons. If they're thinking, okay, say I don't know, say the Raptors, because there were some rumors. Well, Kyle Lowry doesn't really work. So say you're, the Wizards with Bradley Beal and you're considering approaching a trade with Ben Simmons and you're trying to think of what, might interest both parties. Now, the Sixers are not low at all in any way on Ben Simmons. So you got to come with your best or it's not even going to get considered.
Well, it's also tough though right now because
Right.
I mean I think it's pretty clear the Sixers and Ben Simmons are headed towards a breakup. Like that's just been out there recently. I think Rich Paul is willing to move Ben. I think that they're in sync together. I think there are also scenarios where he's back in training camp. Like I think it became pretty obvious they weren't going to move him at draft night. Like
Sure.
once Dame wasn't getting moved, once Bradley Beal wasn't getting moved, Portland didn't even come with a CJ offer. It looked like so. We're going to see what happens as we go into the summer. I think something gets done just because of how everything played out. Like even going back to those Embiid comments after the Atlanta game, the Doc Rivers comments, like I don't think there's a situation where Ben Simmons is in camp. I do think they get a deal done. But if they don't, it's not the worst thing in the world if Ben exactly ups his value. Like Ben Simmons has been a good regular season player, and maybe that actually helps the Sixers right now. But I do think it's good for Sixers fans to have faith that Daryl Morey is just not going to blindly sell Ben Simmons for the first thing that happens or the first offer that they come upon because they had a bad playoff run.
Right. No, I agree. And that's kind of what I took it as is, all my friends were like, oh my God, all the reporters are laughing at us. And I was like, no, this is the Sixers setting a precedent saying like, yeah, everyone else might be talking about how the value is low on him, but it's not low on us. So you've got to come in strong with an offer or we're going to laugh you out of the office.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if nothing else, it set the tone. Like it said, and that's almost going back to the draft. Like that's what I felt like Detroit did when that rumor was going around about it's going to take like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander number 6 to even consider moving up to 1. Like that's a haul. Like that's a serious haul. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a really good young player. And on top of that, you get number 6. Like, that's just to even get you in the ballpark. And that also showed the obvious is that Detroit was never going to move that pick when Cade Cunningham's on the board.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of how I feel about the rumors, and I do, if they are going to move it, I hope it's for a Beal or Dame situation, but you never know.
We do have one last breaking thing before we get out of here. Per Shams and Woj, the Mavericks are trading Josh Richardson to the Celtics.
Hmm.
Richardson is exercising his player option. Don't really think that's much of a surprise. He's due $11.6 million. Josh Richardson was kind of bad in Dallas last year, so I'm not really surprised that they're trying to get him off the books. Like, he just wasn't really what they needed at all. He kind of wasn't fit with Luka that well.
Yeah.
And I get why Boston would, on a 1-year deal, would absolutely take the swing there. So I actually think that's kind of a good move all around.
Yeah, I don't see anything that I hate about it. So, just reading it over, yeah, I might as well do it. And the Celtics are one of those teams that I think need, I guess, in a way, a little bit of a new feel to them, if that's the right word. They just need something to freshen up the feel in that locker room, in my opinion. So this could potentially be a little bit of that.
Well, and they also earlier they traded Tristan Thompson. So Tristan
Yeah.
Thompson looked like we said was going to go to Atlanta. Now it looks like he's going to Sacramento. What's his name? Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn is going to Boston. And so now apparently Josh Richardson is going as well. So
All over the place. Things are moving. It is hard to keep track of, but we're doing our best.
yeah, I mean, like we said, I mean, a pretty chalky draft, but still an exciting draft overall. I mean, not too many surprises, and now we go into free agency. Like, a couple of names out there. We'll see what happens.
Mhm.
Either way, we're going to be rocking with you guys all summer. We don't. By this point, I mean, dude, we're going into season 9. I mean, wow, we're getting there. We're still in season 8. I still consider it season 8 until the regular season tips off, and
Sure.
that's when I consider it season 9 for real. But I mean, we're gonna be with you guys all summer. We'll be covering Vegas. Well, obviously, like we said, the NBA doesn't really slow down anymore. It's kind of nice about it. So we'll have plenty of content. Of course, we'll be watching the Olympics as well. U.S. is playing Czech Republic tonight, actually later on. So we'll advise on that game, and we will be back next week.
We need to.
Listen to the podcast everywhere. I don't know why. I'm just saying listen next week like that's the end of the show. We didn't do any of our regular outro. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you are not an Apple user, we're everywhere you can find a podcast: Amazon Music, Google Play Store, Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, TuneIn. Listen to us while you're driving into work,
Yep.
while you're at work, while you're at the gym, whatever you may be doing. We're there.
And if you own a business and you want to sponsor sending Kevin and I to Vegas for summer league stuff, we will have so many stories, and I will promise to drink a whole bottle of tequila.
Yeah,
So,
Justin will drink tequila, and if you want to send him with like $100 or something,
yeah,
he'll probably turn it into like a G at the casino. So don't give it to me, give it to him. But
yeah, there was some cash. Maybe I'll come back with more. I don't know. Hit me in that Venmo. Let's see.
yeah, if you're also a local business or anybody and you want your ad inserted potentially here or wherever in the show,
At the beginning of the episode, but sure.
yeah, feel free to hit us up on Twitter as well, and we can make something happen.
Yeah, and obviously we can work on a video portion of that too, because we are on YouTube. You can find us YouTube. Just search Drive and Dish NBA.